I used to really suck at putting, like a lot. So I got my act together, did a ton of research, and bought a new putter. But for some reason, that didn't work. So I started digging in deeper, and I bought a new putter. Now, unfortunately, this one didn't work either, and at this point, I finally realized, like, I didn't know what the issue with my putting was. So I started really diving in and doing a lot more research. And I bought a new putter. Okay, this is all the putters that I bought. Nope, that's a lie. I've lent one to a buddy of mine. And there's another one in the basement. But I'm pretty sure that's all of them. So after trying all these different putters and messing with new grips and lead tape and lines on the top and all this stuff, I finally started thinking, maybe it's not the putter? And that led me to create this guide to figure out what my shortcomings were, which showed me what I was doing wrong, and eventually turned me into a scratch putter. And hopefully it'll help you too. Hey, I'm Manu. Great to have you here. So first, let's talk about the tracker and how to use it, and then we can go into what to do when you figure out what you're doing wrong. And this is the tracker. I've got a link to it down below so you can make a copy for yourself. Now, at first glance, it might seem like a lot, but it's really not. Just trust me. There's a lot of words to make it easier to see trends, and really the more words there are means the less stuff you have to enter in manually. And you can see that this is the tracker that I made yesterday when I played my round. And you can see that there's a bunch of kind of measurements here for different putts, but very few on the other side. So it's really not that much. And personally, I prefer to print these out because spreadsheets on my phone remind me too much of work when I'm on the golf course. But you do you. Maybe it's your favorite thing, so you do you. And the whole point of the tracker is to figure out what actually happens when we get out on the course. So there's two parts to this. The first is putt characteristics. And so this is effectively, the length of the putt, which you can guesstimate or, pace it off if you really want to. I tend to think of it as I'm 6 feet tall, so I just think if I lay down, be 6 feet and kind of use it that way. Part two is the level. Is it an uphill putt, downhill putt, or side hill putt? And then the third part of this is the outcome of the putt. Did I miss it short or did I go past it? And was I high or low? Notice I didn't say short or long because L and L for long and low wouldn't go together. See, I put thought into this. And what you'll notice if you get real close and you look with your, eagle eyes, you'll notice that I've actually bolded the first letter of some of these. So you don't even need to write short. You can just write an S and it's like easy shorthand. So that's the putt characteristics. Now on the right-hand side, we've got errors, and there's really only going to be like maybe 1 or 2 or 5. But probably only like 1 or 2 per putt, maybe even less, right? If it's a good putt, you don't really have that many. And I'll walk through these errors. So the first one is prep. Did I prep for this putt? Did I actually look at the line? Did I think about the uphill, downhill? Did I set my stance up correctly? All that stuff. So did I do good prep? And if I didn't do good prep, that's a pretty clear indicator of an error that I made. The second one here is my read. Was my read too high or too low? So did I overread or underread the putt? And then the next one is speed, which is super, super important as far as reducing 3 putts goes. So did I hit it too fast or too slow? And then the next one is, did I hit the ball with a good stroke? This is kind of an important one. Was it the face that was off or was it the whole path that was off? Sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly which is which, but you can usually tell if the club moves in your hands, it's the face. If you felt like you were in to out or you pushed the putt, that was probably the path. And then finally we have mental errors. It's kind of a catch-all for mental errors. So things like, was I nervous about the putt, or I was thinking about, oh, I might miss this, or maybe I was focusing on something else, like a cart that just stopped behind me or something. So all of that counts as mental errors. And just like with the putt characteristics, I've bolded the various errors here. So you can use, Y or N for prep, or F or P for stroke, so you can figure out it's face or path. So make it super easy, very quick to enter stuff in. And like I said, you don't have to enter too much on the sheet itself. So let's walk through a couple examples from yesterday. So we started on the back 9, and on hole number 10, my first putt was 35 feet. It was a downhill side hill putt, and the outcome was I ended up short. And so the error there was I misread the speed. It was the first putt of the day, but I misread this downhill speed and it was short. My second putt was 4 feet, you can see here, and it was a side hill putt, a little sketchy. And the outcome was, that's an L. It looks weird, but it's a wonky L. So I missed it on the low side. And the reason for that, if you look at the errors, is that I actually pulled the putt and there was a mental problem going on. So I was actually thinking about something else going on. So I just put a little X in, or mental screw up. My third putt was a foot. It was right next to the hole. Then on the next hole, I had a 15-footer. I put an F down for flat, just as that reminds me, it's not in the thing, but you can figure it out. And the outcome was it was a little bit short. And the reason was because I duffed the putt. So I hit the ground before I hit the ball. Not the great start, huh? I brought it back, but that was a rough start. And again, it was a mental error early on. So I was thinking about something else. I might have been rushing. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a mental error. And so this is actually where the tracker is really handy, because I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a mental issue. And so my next putt was 2 feet. I should have gotten closer from 15. It's all good. Let's skip forward to, say, the 15th hole. So on the 15th hole, I had a 10-footer. Again, it was downhill, side hill, and I put the ball past the hole by about 4 feet. I overread it. That was the error. I read too much, and I wrote windy in here because it was really windy, and so I was trying to compensate for the wind. A little bit of an overread. Not a huge deal. There's another part on the front 9 on the 7th hole where I also overread the putt because it was windy. So maybe something to keep in mind for later on. And you might also notice that not every putt has an error associated with it. I mean, sometimes you make it, but even if you don't, like, sometimes it was a pretty good putt. Maybe you just missed by a tiny bit here or there. You can also put in some like positive stuff. I mean, it's a piece of paper. You can write whatever you want. So like for me here on the 2nd hole, I made a 61-footer for eagle. And so I put a little smiley face there. And no, I did not make this entire video just to brag about my eagle, although I feel very good about it. So thank you. And when you get into the spreadsheet, you'll notice it actually has room for 2 rounds. 1 on either side, and if you print it on both sides, now you got 4 rounds on 1 piece of paper, so you're doing your part for the rainforest too. So win-win-win for everybody. So the awesome thing about this tracker is you can see basically instantly where you're going wrong. So for me, for example, yesterday, I hit a few putts a little too fast, and I overread some putts. That's really helpful data. And if you're having some trouble with your putting, you can see what's happening over a few rounds and then kind of narrow it down and start fixing that stuff. The other thing I love about this tracker is as you start writing this stuff down, you can start telling in the middle of a round what's happening. So for me, after I wrote down I had a mental error on the 1st and 2nd holes I played, I was extra focused on doing better on the following holes. And it showed. I only made 1 3-putt. It was on the 1st hole. And after that, things were pretty good. I made a bunch of longer putts too, like that 61-footer. I'm going to remember that one. That was really good. And so the cool thing is once you use this for a few rounds, you figure out your issues and you fix them, you don't have to use it again until your putting needs another tune-up. And then you bring it out and in 1 or 2 rounds, you can tell again, oh, here's where maybe I've like gone off my norm and I want to come back. So when I first made this tracker, I learned that A, my green reading sucked. B, I spent way too long on getting the perfect line, which was wrong because my green reading sucked, and not nearly enough time on figuring out whether the putt was uphill or downhill. So my speed was off often because of that. And C, I pulled a lot of putts, so I was having some like face issues at impact. You might notice the same, that there's not one, but multiple issues. No biggie. One really awesome thing about this is just by the act of having to fill it in means we do more of the stuff. And so for me, not checking the level, the up or downhill, kind of fixed itself when I started using this because I knew how to write it down, and therefore I like checked. Then I got into a good habit, and now I do it for every putt. Then I tried to get better at green reading, but it just wasn't working. So very begrudgingly, I learned aim point. Thank you, Gene, for putting me onto that. Aimpoint has changed my life. I don't use the full version of Aimpoint. I use kind of my own budget version, which I just came up with a name for. I call it Claim Point, close enough Aimpoint. It's like fuzzy aim point, so I don't have to like constantly like recalibrate what 1 degree and 2 degrees feels like. I should probably make a video about that at some point. Let me know if that's helpful and I'll make one about it. And I fixed my pulling issues with a little bit of practice and a new putter grip. I actually have 2 of these. I put one, I really like it a lot, so I put one on my old putter as well. This is a little bit wider and this one's a little bit thinner. But the real value of this grip is it's got a flat surface, which if you mount it correctly, it is perfectly lined up with the face. So if you're getting this mounted at your pro shop, I would just make sure they spend a lot of time just like perfecting this. I did it at home, so I could be like extra pedantic about making sure it was perfect. And perfect enough based on eyeline. The cool thing about this grip is that because it's got this flat surface, it gives you a little bit of feedback of where the putter face is. And so if you're turning your hands, you know the putter face is turning. The other thing I tried was I actually changed my grip a little bit. So I tried the claw grip or the pencil grip for a little while, which was helpful. Now I've gone to kind of my standard old grip with just bringing my finger down the side of the shaft because that's really helpful. So a bunch of little things, but they all worked and it wasn't super hard to do. Finding the grip was definitely the most fun part because I got to buy more golf stuff. You know that feeling? And as a result, I've now improved my putting significantly. So I make a lot more birdies, I make more birdies. A lot more is saying a lot. I make more birdies, which is really nice. And I have significantly fewer 3-putts, which is really, really nice. So it's totally been valuable for me. I still bring this out once every little while just to see how things are going, or if I'm ever feeling like a little sketchy over my putts. Now, obviously there is a ton of great putting content out there, but maybe I can share a couple of the big fixes that I've learned for each of these errors in case they help you out. So first up on the prep front, prep to me includes looking at the line, the level, the uphill, downhill, and the length about where you want to miss. Do you want to miss short of the hole? But if it's a downhill putt, you never want to miss short of the hole. You want to be a little bit past so you have an easier putt coming back. So all that fits into prep, along with do you set up properly? This was an issue I had a little while ago where I was kind of doing all the prep in terms of figuring out where I wanted to hit it, but then rushing my setup. and that would lead to like a bad putt overall. So setup also fits into prep. Next up, if you're having issues with your green reading, you are not alone. I think this is the #1 problem that most golfers have. And it's funny because you see all these people with the putting mirrors and like the chalk lines, and you're not aiming at the hole. If your line is wrong, the ball's just never going to go in. And so this was plagued me for a long time until I finally figured out a way to get relatively good at fixing it. So I think the first step here is just to notice if you're regularly missing the ball above or below the hole. Obviously the ideal is to miss it above, but the ideal is really to not miss it. So if you're overreading or underreading your putts, good thing to know about. And of course, every course is different. So a great place to calibrate your green reading is on the practice green before the round. And so the way I like to do it is I find a putt, I think about like how much it's going to break. Then I hit a putt at the center of the hole and see how much it breaks. And to me, that's kind of a good indication of like, okay, if it missed 6 inches to the left, then I should have aimed 6 inches to the right. I actually aimed at 8 inches or 9 inches, and so I was overreading it. Do that 3 or 4 times and I get a pretty good idea of like how much does this break relative to my baseline, my home course, and so I can make adjustments as I go through the round. The other thing you can do with green reading, which is what I did, and I highly recommend it if you're having a lot of trouble with green reading, is just learn aim point. I know a lot of people are worried that like it'll slow you down on the course. It doesn't have to. It's a choice. It's your choice if you need to take 17 different readings, or if you just take like one. And you could always use claim point, the close enough aim point that I use. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for any trademarks with that. I'm just making funny jokes here. I think they're funny. Anyway, I think learning aim point, just learning aim point in general, will also help with green reading because you're spending time in a concerted way just trying to figure out how things break. And so, you know, you'll learn some stuff. And then another thing you can do is if you ever play with people who are better than you, ask them for their read of a line, maybe after you hit the putt, so you're not like looking for help, but ask them for their read and see how far off you might have been. Because we don't always have time to like hit 3 or 4 putts at the hole after we've missed. But we do have time to ask somebody else, be like, hey, how much did you think that putt was off? Or how much would you have read that to be? So that's an easy way to do it. And next up is speed. Now, I think this is the second biggest problem we have as putters. The first one obviously being green reading, and speed I think is a big one that leads to a lot of 3 putts. So if you want to cut down your 3 putts and cut down your handicap, I think it's the fastest way to cut down your handicap. And there's tons of drills online. I don't need to tell you about them. The one thing that I think is really underrated and everyone should do is spend 2 minutes on the practice green before the round, because green speed changes from day to day, as well as obviously from course to course, but from day to day and even from time of day. So even if I don't have time, I'll like run onto the practice green for a couple of minutes and just practice like a 5-footer, a 10-footer, a 20-footer, 30 seconds, right? Anything just to get a feel. The 5-footers are important to me because I'm gonna have a bunch of knee knocker putts that are like in that 5-foot range, and I don't want those to turn into bogeys. The 10-footers are usually birdie putts kind of in that range. And then 20-footers, I want to get those to within like 1 or 2 feet. So I'm not thinking too much over 3- and 4-foot putts, because all that mental energy, etc., kind of like compounds over the course of a round. And so if on every hole you've got like a 4-foot comebacker, it's going to tire you out a lot faster. And then next up on stroke, I think the first big part of that is your setup. So making sure you're square and not like some weird kind of contorted position to try to make this putt. That's usually helpful. Helps you like make that stroke less variable. Another thing is keep your lower body quiet. I know a lot of people who still have like a little bit of movement, that lower body, which definitely will mess up the backswing and the club face as you move through. And then the third thing, which could be really helpful, is like for me, get a different grip, maybe something that works for you. I've got a link to this guy down below too if you want to check it out. You can also try changing your hand position. So a lot of people try the claw grip, pencil grip, etc. Anything that helps you get more club face awareness, because that's really what you're looking for, right? You want to be able to feel where the club face is so you can start it online and send the ball where you want it to go. And finally, if you notice you're making a lot of mental errors, a couple easy things here. So one, keep breathing. Breathe before you get down into putting, because when you're bent over to putt, it kind of closes off your chest, I don't know, this area, and makes it harder to breathe. So maybe breathe before you putt. If you're having a lot of thoughts in your head or you're really sensitive to other sounds, you know, take a deep breath, let it go. And the thing I like to tell myself is that's just life going on the way that it's supposed to. That's cool. I'm here to hit this putt. And so I get back into my body and focus on hitting that putt. And the biggest mental issue a lot of us tend to have is rushing. And this video will help with that. So that's the putting tracker. Thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful. I'd love to hear how this goes for you on the course. Please share this with a friend and let me know with the buttons what you think. See you next time. Ciao.